Vanim shel mikol hanal yuvan lamaski l'mayla, and was algorized from all the above. You can understand to the thinker above. Bebechinas os yosamachshava, in concerning the idea of letters of thought, v'os yosadibur, and the letters of speech, l'mayla above dihini dua. And now it's known shebiyud nivra ha'olam haba, that with the letter Yud, the world to come was created. Shu bechinas os echad mi bechinas osius mimachshavto yizbarich, that it's one letter from the letters of Hashem's thought. Ubehei nivra ha'olam hazeh, and with the letter Hey, this world was created. Ubechinas osius hadibur, it's the concept of the letters of speech, ha'elyon. Inyan almin sisimin ve'almin disgalyan. It's the concept of hidden worlds and revealed worlds. Almin sisimin be'osios machshava. You have the hidden worlds with the letters of thought, shenimshachim mibina de'atzilus, that come from the level of bina of atzilus. Ve'almin disgalyan shenivro mibechinas osios hadibor. And you have the revealed worlds that come from the letters of speech. And now, just like with the combination of letters of the supernal speech, that in general, that's five. There are five combinations of the five parts of the mouth that where letters come from. You have this go-between stage that brings the breath of the heart, of the supernal heart, so to speak, of Zeranpin into Malchus. And that's also from the concept of this letter Aleph that we talked about, from the simple voice that comes from the breath of the heart, the midos de Zeranpin, which is the concept of the attributes of Zeranpin, the emotional attributes allegorized in Za. Like we say, like it says in Tehillim, that the voice of Hashem is with strength. What is with Bekoach, Bekaf Ches Asfan, is with the 28 letters, the tziruf adnai mikor kol nivraim chulu, of the combinations of the letters of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, 28 different combinations, the source of all the creations. So that's so to speak, the voice of Hashem is the 28 letters, the combination of Shem Adnai. Which is, and this also corresponds with the concept of the letters of speech. Like we brought in the allegory, so too it is with the hidden worlds that come from the letters of the supernal letters of thought of Atzilus, that's called the hidden world, the hidden worlds. All the whole idea of the division of combinations of letters is through this go-between stage. This letter Aleph, which is the first of the 22 letters of supernal thought, which is in a hidden state, in ethereal, in the intellect and understanding of the level of Bina itself. That's where this Aleph originates. Bina, and it has part of it is the concept of Bina, but it also has part of it from the letters of thought. It's in between. Therefore, it's able to bring out the light of Bina, understanding into the letters of supernal thought, just like the letter Aleph of the voice of the heart. From it comes and shines the emotions into speech, so too it is in the level of thought to bring out the thought from the mind. There's this letter Aleph in between. And that's why the world to come is rooted in Bina. As is known, and this world, that includes the general concept of the world, is the concept of Malchus, which is called the lower hay. And since the world to come is created with Yod in the thought of Bina, so it's drawn into this Yod from the essential light of intellect of Bina, from this memutza of the letter Aleph into the Yod. And from this letter Yod, the neshamas receive in the world to come. So too the neshamas receive a radiance from the divine presence, from the Shechina, from the concept of supernal kingship, the concept of speech in the Garden of Eden now, as the neshamas are above, they get a glimmer from the Shekhinah, from the Dibur. And so again, it has to come through this memutza to go to the Dibur. And that's why it says that with Yud-K are created, are formed worlds, biyud ha'olam haba, ubehei ha'olam hazeh. With the Yud is the world to come, and with the Hey is this world, Bina and Malchus, which correspond with the levels of Bina and Malchus. ולפי שבחינת הגבורוס מן הצפח, the Bina שמחלקים אוסיוס המחשבה, and since the five strictnesses of the letters of Minatzpach, of Bina, divide the letters of thought, nimshachim ledibur, and are drawn to speech, shinikrahem mutzas chulu, and they're called the five parts of the mouth where it comes out from, and so forth. So you have these five gvuros that divide the letters of thought, and they also come into speech to divide the letters of speech. Mamer, hayidua the ima ozifas manaha lebarta, like the known saying that the mother gives over her clothing, lends her clothing to the daughter. The kamoshe kazuv ki ima bita, like the pasuk says in Yechezkel, like the mother, so to the daughter. Lekach amar tzur. That's why it says that he forms worlds. So you have the mother is Bina, and the daughter is Malchus, and the five gvuros and the menatzpach of the division of the letters, as they are in thought or Bina, come down into speech or Malchus to create the hidden worlds and the revealed worlds. Like it says, from the world to the world. And that's enough to understand this, that we're talking about the hidden world to the revealed world. So now we can preface the second preface. And that is that which is brought in Eitz Chaim continuously, concerning the unity of the mother and the father. Shnimshach bechinas tipas abachulu, that is drawn, the drop of the Father. Tihinemi bisari echazeh. Now from my flesh I see, liyos shanuroyim, that we can see kasher yaski lezeseichel v'svara chadasha. When anyone thinks about a new idea, shebevadai hariyesh lemekor motzam shemisham noveya v'nimshach, that certainly it has a source, that from there it flows and is drawn, v'hua nikra maskil, and that strength to bring out ideas from the mind is called the koach hamaskil, shemaskil kol seichel v'dvar chachma min bechinas hahelem legiloi, that it brings out and intellects all kinds of intellect, and from the hidden to the revealed. And this, the source for this, is the strength of intellect. That it is within the ability of to have intellect, of the soul to have intellect, and to bring out some idea of wisdom. And this is the state as it is before he even brings out any revealed intellect. Kol ma shiyochol haskil is included in it, everything that a person can understand, sichli misfaros, all kinds of ideas and explanations. V'im kein la'achar shenimshach mimenu eze dvar seichel v'chachma, and if so, after is drawn out from a person, from this level, some kind of intellect or idea, it's incomparable to the strength to have intellect, to bring out all the intellects, the supernal, essential ability to do this. Called sichlim, which is called the source of all the intellects, but nonetheless, from this ability comes out and is revealed this revealed state of intellect, only that it comes out from nothing to something. So this is comparable to the creation of a drop from the mind, which also, this drop comes out from the inner concept of the intellect of the mind, which is this ability to have intellect. The drop comes from there too, that is in the wetness of the source of the mind, that from that wetness a person has intellect and grows all kinds of ideas. From there is also created the spiritual component of the drop as it is in the mind. And afterwards there's a process where this becomes physicalized in the mind and becomes an actual drop in the brain. And as it goes through the vein of the spine, miskashemes yoser, it becomes more physicalized. Becomes an essence of seed. And before it's created this drop as a physical state in the brain, it's included in part of this ability to have intellect, this spiritual force and source of ideas. Rather, but this drop is this physical representation and extension of the mind's ability, spiritual ability to have intellect. Therefore, it becomes physical in the vessel of the brain from it. But even though it's physicalized, there's within this drop from the essential quality and the essence of the ability of intellect, because we see that this drop will create a new soul that's similar to the one who bore it, with the strength of intellect, shlema, that's complete, that's close to the essence of the soul of the intellect of the Father, as is known. But and now, even though after it becomes coarsened and physicalized in the vein of the spine, you cannot compare this drop at all in any way to the essential soul of the one who bore it. Nonetheless, it still gives birth to a similar, in a similar way, in a similar vein, to the essence of the soul of the Father. And this is similar to this seed that's planted in the ground, that the seed can grow into a complete fruit, and specifically the seed will do this. You don't plant an actual apple, you plant the seed. That the seed is incomparable to the apple that comes from it. That the seed is hard, and does not have any flavor in it. And it's much more coarse and physical than the softness and the nice qualities that the fruit has as it becomes a fruit. It's not like a piece of rock that the seed seems to be. Nonetheless, the seed itself is more from the essential concept of the fruit itself. It's from the essential part of the fruit, more than the flesh of the fruit. Because the flesh of the fruit, even though it has the actual flavor, cannot grow a new fruit from it. Because it is not the essence of the fruit. Only what's added onto it and grown and spread out from the essence and as an extra part, and so forth. As it's explained in another place, and so too it is with this concept of the drop, that even though it is physicalized, nonetheless, it is from the essential quality of the soul itself, of the one who's giving birth, to this child from the drop. Much more than an idea that comes from this ability of intellect. Even though that this intellect is more spiritual than the drop, nonetheless, it is not the concept of the essential quality of strength of intellect that's in the essence of the soul. Therefore, the drop specifically will give birth in comparison to it a soul that's similar to the father, to the one who bore it. And this is the difference between the children of the souls to the children of the angels, that which the neshamos create, to that which the malachim give offspring. The shoresh hatoldo shel malachim, that the offspring of the angels, mizivug neshikin de'aba ve'ima, comes from the unification of kissing of the mother and the father. It's a concept of a kiss in comparison to a actual act of so to speak sexual intimacy. That the concept of the unity of a kiss of the mother and father, which is a concept of the attachment of wind to wind, Chabad b'Chabad chulu, which is the idea of a meeting of the mind, so to speak, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the one into the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of the other. That you have a unity of the heads coming together, which is the mochin of one attaching and to the mochin of the other through ruach. That you draw down from the mother to the father, you're drawing down wisdom into understanding, from nothing to something, from the source of intellect of Atzilus, just like you have this ability of intellect below, which has an idea of revealed intellect, but the source of the souls is from a more physical kind of unity and intimacy, that you have this masculine waters of Zeranpin, drawing out from the inner mind of the father, which is called the drop of the father, which is allegorized to this idea of the creation of the drop in the mind, that even though it is much more physicalized in comparison to an idea, nonetheless it is from the essence, like we explained. So too with this drop, so to speak, of the father of wisdom above, it's from the essential quality, the essence of wisdom of the world of Atzilus, and can give birth to something that's similar to it, similar to the essence of the emanator. We're talking about the nefesh elokis, creation of a divine soul, in comparison to a creation of only an idea, which is like the creation of a malach. Adam ele elyon, and that's why man it says, I am compared to on high. That Adam is called that from that language, like it says, we're going to create man, Nase Adam, Bitzel Menu, in our image, and so that's what that means. That's coming from this place, and it's only this is only speaking about the soul, that its first source is from this inner concept of the Father. And that's why it says, because you are our Father, like it says in another place. And that's enough. To understand this, V'zeu gam kein shoresh inyan Rosh Hashanah, and that's also the concept of Rosh Hashanah, shu b'chinas binyan hanokva, which is the concept of the building of the feminine aspect. V'yesh b'zeh beis inyanim, and there's two concepts in it. Ha'alef b'shvil hashpa le'olam debiyah. The first is for the flow to the lower worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiyah. You have to draw down new brains, new mind to the masculine and the feminine, in the Abba, from the brain of the father, so to speak. You're drawing down from the drop, from the essence, through the, so to speak, unity of the male and the female aspect. And the second is for the creation of the soul, Inyan Brias Adam Harishon, which is the concept of the creation of Adam, the first man, that the world was created on the 25th of Elul, Adam Harishon Biyom Havav, and Adam, the first man, was created on the 6th day, Shur Rosh Hashanah. So you're creating the worlds, and you're also creating the neshama of Adam on Rosh Hashanah, Mashikazuv Zayom Tchilas Maasecha, and that it says this is the first day of your acts, Kayal Adam Arishon, that's referring to Adam, the first man, Shebishvilo Nivra Ha'olam, that for him the world was created. Inyan Tekias Shofar, hu b'chinas hamshachas pnimis hamochin da'aba, memekora dekola, and the concept of the blowing of the shofar is from drawing down, is the concept of drawing down the inner brains of the Father, memekora dekola, from the source of all. Shuhu. So that's drawing down the new brains, the new mind from the essence, like to have a new neshama. Sharia shofar shorshu bebechinas pnimis atik yamin, because the shofar is rooted in the inner concept of the pnimis hakeser of atik, shemeir bepnimis abba, that shines into the inner concept of the Father of Chachma. And to draw the intellect of the mind of the Father into the masculine and feminine aspect of Zanukva Vatzilus, Bishvil told us Adam Harishon, in order to create the soul and the offspring of Adam Harishon, Shubichinas told us Haneshama, which is the offspring of the Neshama, which is the essence and inner concept of the mind, which is this drop of the Father, which gives birth into something that's likened to it. The essence of the Father creates the neshama. So this is higher than the level of the mochin to create the worlds. This is the inner concept, and that comes from the shofar to create neshamos, to create the neshama of Adam Harishon, Lehavin zebetosefes bir, and to understand this on a deeper level. It's known that the masculine aspect of Atzilus, of Zah, is the emotional attributes of the world of Atzilus, Bechinas Vav, Tzavos. It's the concept of the six sides, Chagas Chulu, of kindness and strictness and beauty and so forth, and Makor Kol Ham Shachos Shinim Shechula Olmos Briyatziyasiyah, and they are the source of all flow that comes to the worlds of Briyatziyasiyah al Yedei Bechinas HaMalchus, as it comes through the feminine aspect of Malchus, Shu Dibura Elyon, which is the supernal speech. Like it says in the Zohar, on the verse, 6 days Hashem made and so forth, and not in 6 days, that the 6 days themselves are the tools to make. That it's these 6 days, these supernal days that made They are the tools that to act the creation with, to enact the creation. They are the midos of Atzilus. V'nei b'chinas hamidos de Atzilus mekablim mochin b'chinas chachma bina de Atzilus. Now these emotional attributes, so to speak, of the world of Atzilus receive the brains, the intellect into these, so to speak, emotions from the wisdom and understanding of the world of Atzilus al derech moshel amidus b'lev ha'adam, just like allegorically, the emotions in the heart of man, that you draw down intellect and reason to the emotions, like it says, according to the intellect a person praises. Just like the heart, the love that's within the heart has a reason and an intellect to it. Lama Yahov, why you should love. And the intellect and the reasoning of the emotion is contracted only according to the essence of the emotion alone, and it cannot be compared to the essence of the intellect itself as it is beyond emotion. And so to the intellect as it's and the mind as it's drawn into the emotional attributes of the world of Atzilus, cannot be compared to the essential quality of the wisdom and understanding of Chochmah and Bina of Atzilus itself, because it's become changed in its changing of its contracted to change its essence, to become intellect to an essential emotional quality attribute. So it's now intellect for emotions and not intellect on its own. And this is the essential idea of the 6 days of creation, that are rooted in the 6 sides of the world of Atzilus. That in the first day is drawn the intellect for the kindness of Zeir Anpin, and on the second day is for Gvura, that in general this corresponds with the 6,000 years that the world exists. That the first 1,000 corresponds with the kindness of Zeir Anpin, like it says that 1,000 years in your eyes is like a day of yesterday, and so forth. Then each 1,000 corresponds with 1 day of creation, and so the 6,000 years of existence corresponds with the 6 days of creation. In each one corresponds to its attribute of Za. Ubechol Rosh Hashanah v'Rosh Hashanah, and every single Rosh Hashanah mischadesh chidush chayus ha'olamos mimekorim bevav ksavos de'atzilus, is renewed the life force in the world from the source in the six sides of the attributes of Atzilus. If you're renewing it, so it needs to be renewed from the intellect from the mother and father as well. And that's why it says, say in front of me kingships, in order to make me king upon you. To renew the mochin to the midos. So to the idea of a remembrance to the first day. Why? That is to renew again the building of the worlds from its first source, which is the wisdom of Atzilus, which you draw down new intellect, new brains, so to speak, into Zeir Anpin. Like it says, you've created them all with wisdom, with Chachma, that everything originates in Chachma. So, for example, a person who does work for their friend because they love them, that you have to constantly renew, to draw down intellect into the mind, from the mind into the attribute of love, in order so that you do not weaken in your work. You have to remember why you love this person, why you're doing the work for them, in order to continue with the same energy to complete the work. So to this attribute of supernal kindness of Zah, you need to draw down constantly this concept of the intellect from the light of the Father of Chokhmah, in order so that you do not weaken his act, the work and the flow below, into the worlds of Yitzirah. So you can apply this idea to all the other drawing down into and of the 6 sides of Zeranpin and so forth. But all this is the external flow into Zeranpin and Nukva b'shvil ha'olmos, in order to create the worlds. This whole idea of Valkain Nikra Vav Yemei Hamaisa, and that's why it's called the 6 days of action of Maisa, but the deeper flow, from the inner brains of the Father. Tipas Abba is the concept of drawing down the drop of the Father, in order to create the souls of Adam Harishon, which is from the essential essence of the strength of wisdom, which is in the essence of the strength of the emanator, like we explained. And they are the inner brains that are drawn into the masculine and feminine aspect, in order to have this unity, to give birth to the souls. Inyan Rosh Hashanah, and that's the main concept of Rosh Hashanah, that Adam Harishon was created on, like we said, and so forth. So it's the creation of the worlds is again not on Rosh Hashanah but on Kafeh Be'elul, and seemingly more comparable to the concept of the Zivug Neshikin that creates the Malachim. It's not from the essential inner unity of Chokhmah Bina to create Neshamos like it is on Rosh Hashanah. And after these 2 prefaces, Yuvan, Shoresh, Inyan, Tekias, Shofar. So you had the concept of the Memutza of the Aleph. And we also have the concept of the difference between Zivug and Yichud Chitzoni of Abba and Ima, and the Zivug and Yichud Pnimi of Abba and Ima. And with these 2 ideas, these 2 prefaces, you can now understand the source of the blowing of the shofar, Shubechinas Kol, Pashut Dafka, specifically to have this simple cry, the simple voice, Hayotze Mehevel Halev, that comes from the breath of the heart, Ki Yedua, Bihiyos Yedua, and as it's known, the Eker Mekora Olamos, Hu Midas Malchuso Yisparech, that the main source of the worlds is his attribute of kingship may be blessed. Like it says, your kingship is the kingship of all worlds. It's the source of the worlds. So in order to create the worlds, so on Rosh Hashanah, which is the time of renewal of the world. Zehayom tchilas ma'asecha. This is the day of the beginning of your acts. Zikaron liyom rishon, a remembrance to the first day. Tzarich lechadesh lebechinas midas hamalchus. So we then have to renew this attribute of kingship, which is the source of the world. Memekoro harishon, from its very first source. Mebechinas olamat tainug ha'elyon, and that's from the world of supernal pleasure. Mekor ha'chachma, which is the source of wisdom, the source of the world. Just like we brought before, with this concept of the ability to have intellect. Before intellect comes out, before chachma, you have the ability of intellect, with this pleasure in having intellect, in order to give over an idea of intellect, or to have this drop in the mind, that this is only through the arousal of the strength of pleasure, which is in the essence of the soul, with this strength to have intellect, to bring out chachma from its source. And it's rooted in this concept of the wetness of the mind, that the wetness either becomes an idea, or it can become a drop. It's the spiritual wetness of the mind. So too with the idea of renewing the attribute of kingship, that is in order to draw out the will and the pleasure. For this attribute, for the kingship, you have to draw down the pleasure for this attribute from its source, which is the essential strength of pleasure, of supernal pleasure, which is in the essence of the emanator, that from this is the source of wisdom, which is called the first level. As is known, Chachma. Now the reason for this, why do you have to awaken and draw out and draw down this attribute of kingship? That you should have a pleasure, Shem should have the pleasure in his attribute of in this attribute of kingship, to draw down from the tainug into it. It's known that you should have, for example, in man, that a person does not have pleasure from this, that the limbs are nullified and listen to a person's will, because they're part of him. So he doesn't have pleasure in the fact that they listen to his command, which is not the case with a separate person. He will have pleasure from them being nullified to him and listening to him. So to the king, the main pleasure the king has in being king is when his subjects are nullified and listen to him, and specifically this as they are separate from the king. Now in the supernal concept of kingship and the kingship of the supernal heavens, it's not like that. Inyan that if you had this concept of division of the creations, the finite creations, a true concept of division, that is, if they were created from themselves and not from the divine light, just like the servants or slaves below, that they are in existence on their own first before they have a king, but only that they've become nullified to their king. If you had that idea, then you could say that there's this pleasure in ruling over them in the attribute of kingship. Lihiyos melech alam, in order to be a king over them, that they should listen to him and nullify themselves to him, nifradim, as they are separate from him. Aval be'emes, but the truth is, mimcha kol ksiv, everything comes from you, it says, so you can't have this allegory above, because from Hashem's true existence, that's where everything comes from. And it's called the cause of causes. So that if so, all creation is like Hashem's limbs in this allegory. Everything is completely nullified and to Hashem's ratzon. Only this, that they exist as an existence and separate, is through the concept of the tzimtzum and contraction, that he contracted his essential light in order so that there could be an existence in something as is known. If so, it's not a true division in comparison to the essence. If so, you don't have so much this pleasure of being king over them, because they're part of him. They come from him, just like we said that the person does not have pleasure in their limbs listening to them. And that's why we need to draw down the kingship from the supernal pleasure. We have to actively draw out the pleasure to it. It won't be there by itself. From the supernal pleasure, from Hashem's simple will, from the essence of the emanator, from there you draw down to the first revelation, which is the level of wisdom, and from wisdom is drawn into the emotional attributes, the emotions of creation, which is drawing down the intellect to Za and Nukva for the midos of the 6 days of creation and for the attribute of kingship, in order to build the worlds. And so you can understand the idea of drawing out the inner pleasure, the inner will, from the inner and essence of the emanator, the pnimis abba, to the inner concept of the Father, which is called the drop of the Father, in order to have this supernal unity, in order to have offspring of Adam, the first man, like we said before. And that's enough to understand this idea that you have to awaken the pleasure both for the chitzonius olamos, to have the creation of the worlds for the 6 days of creation, and to be king over and to have melucha, and also to draw down a deeper hamshacha, the pnimis yichud for the neshamos. So, in all of this, you have to awaken the tainug above through the shofar.